I'm Martin Wallace.
I'm Darren McCarthy.
And I'm Dan Fury.
And this is The Fundamentals.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
That was
all
pretty
right.
good.
It's like we've done it before.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. All right.
So what are we talking about today?
Professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
Talking.
Efficiency. Yeah.
Accuracy.
Mhm.
Can you imagine like 50 years ago if we had to have like a full studio with a staff and
Oh, yeah.
recording directly?
Tape machines.
Like how little of this would ever be allowed? Like how quickly?
None at all.
It would be impossible, right?
I'd be in the manager's office getting screamed at by a guy smoking Lucky Strikes,
Oh, yeah.
Not again.
which would be not again. Every day with you. Every day.
Wallace,
Yeah.
my office. Now. And then everyone go, ooh.
Oop.
Yeah.
Oop.
Did I mention on this podcast ever that I worked with a woman who was in her 70s when I worked with her? She was we were talking about like, quitting smoking or something, or someone had come in and said, hey, I'm trying to quit. And they bought a pack of cigarettes anyway. And she was like, oh, yeah, I know. That's really hard. And then the person left and asked, oh, you used to smoke? And she said, oh, yeah, I used to smoke 3 packs of Lucky Strikes a day.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Like in my
That's a
mind,
lot
it's like
of damn cigarettes.
it's like the image is like a truck at a red light, and then like the engine falls out of it, like out of the bottom. You know, like,
Yeah.
think about how heavy that would
Yeah.
be, and how decidedly that truck's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like that's like
Done.
Well, I was looking at her and I was just thinking, like your lungs fell out of your ass. And you're
Hey,
just
when I
a
smoked,
truck.
I smoked not even close to that. And that's like,
Yeah.
my grandma would tell me the same thing. And she was, as long as I'd known her, never smoked. But back in her day, she smoked 3 packs a day because no matter where you were, there was
could
no
smoke.
reason not to be smoking. So you'd be at work
Oh, man.
and it's just constantly. So like she worked at like a call center.
Yeah,
She was like an operator back when that was like big
a
business.
job.
Yeah. And she would just sit there and smoke like constantly. There's no ever a reason not to be
It's
smoking.
passing the time.
Yeah, so you would just smoke 3 packs a day. I smoked as often as I possibly could. I'd do 1, maybe a little bit over, sometimes less, just right around 1.
Yeah,
I would have to really try.
you would have to change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
to smoke
lifestyle
more.
would be.
The cost of that these days, too, would be unreal.
Yeah, I remember when the last time I was in New York.
Yeah, it's
like
terrible
$15 a pack.
It's fucked. I mean, that's great
Yeah,
for people. I mean, people should not be smoking 3 packs a day.
One of the
Yeah.
guys that I was on tour with, he was talking about like, yeah, it's $15 a pack, and people were on the street hitting them up for a cigarette. It's
Yeah.
like, absolutely not.
No.
I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Yeah. If it was like a penny,
Yeah.
sure, but
Oh.
it's almost $1 a cigarette.
Take 5. I don't
Yeah.
care.
So
Well,
anyway,
let's-
now that we
let's-
covered cigarettes and smoking,
Uh-huh.
let's talk about plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Buy Mart.
Is that like a slogan for Weimar? What is that?
Buy Mark.
I'm curious. Oh, I see. It's
Yeah,
buy. I
yeah.
get it. It's
Wow.
okay. Let's do the intro again.
I'm not gonna.
Start over.
Let's completely cut that
Guys,
shit out.
We
Yeah.
we need to restart.
Okay, let's
this
restart it.
Whole
Okay, jokes aside,
plastic, huh?
plastic.
Oh man, plastic is everywhere. I was just thinking about this. Plastic is on me or in my immediate vicinity almost my entire life, every minute of every day.
Yeah.
There's plastic in my wallet. There's plastic in the car that I drive. It's everywhere.
Yeah, there's no getting away.
No.
Mhm. At this point, it is too integrated.
We couldn't even do this podcast without plastic.
Almost all of the stuff that we use is made with plastic.
Vast majority, I would say.
You know, one of the first things I thought about was that this has been, I think, been covered a million different times, but there's that floating mass of trash out in the Pacific Ocean that's like the size of Texas or
Mhm.
whatever. It's this huge area that's just
Like the Pacific Garbage Patch.
yeah. The Garbage Patch Kids,
Yeah.
they're out there.
I made that
made
joke
that
earlier
same
today.
joke.
Did you?
Yeah.
When?
Earlier
Just,
today,
like,
we were
a few hours ago.
hanging
Oh
out,
my
yeah.
God! Did you set me up on that?
No, that's what it's called.
You brought it up.
Yeah.
Is it called that?
It's called the Pacific Garbage Patch. Yeah.
But Garbage Patch Kids?
No, that is
No.
a joke that he made
We're
earlier.
just like-minded
Linked.
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah, we're bonded.
Yep.
Like plastic. Just thinking that. I mean, that's about as remote as it gets on Earth, the middle of the Pacific, and there's
Yeah.
plastic there.
A bunch
A
of
And there's
bunch of it.
an island out there called Midway Island.
Yeah.
And that's like the spot in which the Allies took over, like America mostly at that point.
The Battle of Midway.
Took over the Pacific. They beat back the Japanese there. And now it's pretty much just a bunch of albatross.
Full
and
of plastic bags.
Garbage.
Yeah.
It's like nothing out there but some activists.
Oh.
You can get out there hardly. It's just filled with trash.
Yeah. It's another one of those things that has become, plastic is a miracle. It's become absolutely vital and integrated into our lives, and we use it every day, completely take it for granted. And the downside is it can be absolutely terrible.
Yeah,
in the long run.
I think this is something I've thought for a long time outside of this, doing this episode, but it's like we have this incredible material that never degrades, and then we just made an amount of it as if it always degrades.
That's fine.
America makes 115 billion pounds of it a year.
Yeah. And we're not even...
What? That is...
One country.
Yeah, it's one country.
We definitely produce the most of it, right?
I think India's up there too.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like if you're looking at...
We probably use and waste up there, but...
Yeah.
No, but I think we also recycle at a relatively higher rate than a lot of like developing countries. So like in a developing country, it's cheaper to produce plastic containers and stuff. Like, so it's used more because it's a cheaper overall cost. So it's kind of a weird balance between countries that have been stabilized economically for a longer period of time, using plastic and recycling it, as opposed to developing countries that are using plastic and the infrastructure isn't there yet to recycle it entirely.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like, we might be producing more, but we're probably recycling a greater percentage. I think like Sweden like recycles.
I just read or saw a little article on that where they have an extremely high.
They have to
recycle rate.
import other waste from other countries to like keep the factories open, like to keep the recycling
That's
plants.
incredible.
We got to lay these guys off if you don't send some trash.
Send your garbage.
Yeah, Sweden.
You make a ton of money that way.
I
learned that from SimCity, at least city to city. I think that's a real thing in real life.
Sure.
Make a ton of money by importing trash, put it in your landfill.
Did you do that in SimCity?
Oh, for sure.
That's so great of you.
Well, they paid me a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
Annual
That's
budgets and stuff. So what is plastic? I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Where did it come from? Who discovered how to make it?
We take so much for granted. And
incredibly.
We know its shape and its form, but how many people really know what it is?
Right.
You know what it's derived from?
Oil?
It's oil. Yeah.
It's oil.
Yeah.
Petrochemicals. Now, there's kind of been, but there are also kind of like stages in the development of plastics. So like natural rubber is kind of like a precursor. And then, was it Parkazine? Did you come across this?
No, not Parkazine, I don't think.
It was like the first man-made plastic, but I think it was kind of like a weird hybrid between like organic compounds and synthetic compounds. So it was not technically like the first synthetic plastic the way that we would think of it, but it was kind of like this gateway between rubber and synthetic plastic. From what I can tell, it's kind of like it's a halfway point. So people are trying to chemically alter and engineer a material that they didn't just find it that way.
Right.
And so in 1839, Charles Goodyear of Goodyear Tire fame accidentally discovered a process in which sulfur reacted with crude rubber.
Great name.
Heated it and cooled, and then the rubber becomes resilient and could stretch and snap back.
Right.
So that's like that same kind of hybrid. It's still an organic compound that's been chemically manipulated. It's not a lab-made synthetic plastic yet. I think it's important to note a plastic is any material that can be shaped or molded.
That's kind of the definition of the name plastic, the plasticity of something.
So that's why there's like synthetic plastic, organic plastics.
And I think it comes from, there's a Greek word like plastos something, and it means something that is something that's malleable and can be molded. It's a kind of a definition. But plastic was just kind of given as the name of this material because it had that property.
Yeah.
So when we see all the stuff that is made out of plastic and we take all this stuff for granted, it's interesting to note that prior to plastic, the only replacement for these things was clay or glass. That was the only stuff that we had that we knew that we could mold.
Yeah.
And steel to a certain point, but that had to be forged, and like irons and metals was much, much harder to mold. But clays and glass was what all this stuff would be made out of. It'd be very, very brittle. It'd break.
Breakable.
Yeah. So if you were to just try to mentally replace all the stuff that you have that's plastic with clay, imagine how often it would just break on you. Plastic's pretty easy to break, but
Yeah. It doesn't break cleanly, though.
no, it shatters. Yeah. Like how many bottles you would have to make out of, glass or clay.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I remember 20 years ago, most liquid containers were glass. Like, soda bottle, like you would get like 16-ounce soda. It wasn't glass, not plastic.
Mm.
A little twist cap, like beer bottles, glass. Yeah.
Like Snapple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do they even make glass Snapple anymore?
Yeah, Snapple's still in glass, I think. Although there was definitely some plastic ones
Yeah.
too, like that HDPE, like the with a high density was in here. I have
It's in there.
I have a list here of
high density polyethylene.
polyethylene.
Yeah. That's like a milk jug.
Yeah,
Gosh, how many friggin' milk jugs have there been in this world?
probably
Such
billions.
an
I mean, I don't even know.
Billions and
astronomical
billions,
amount.
yeah. And you just throw those away.
Oh, yeah.
Before they were in the glass, you could recycle them, and if you didn't, at least they degraded.
Yeah.
Now how many of those do you think are just floating in the ocean?
Oh, gosh.
Here's my thing: if you have a glass container, right, you can just melt that back down, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Glass is awesome.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Or at least decompose in lifetimes.
it's not like a plastic bag that a
If
sea
you
turtle.
heat up glass, you can still drink what's inside of it. You don't want to drink anything out of a plastic bottle that's been in your car for a few days.
Right.
Is that BPA? You get BPA.
BPA is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
That's kind of on the
Hot
way out,
topic.
though, right? That's like
Well, they're trying to now.
Yeah.
Now the
You
public's
got to
become aware
say
of it.
BPA free
Mm-hmm.
on your products if you want anybody to get them.
BPA was originally a birth control.
What?
Yeah, it's estrogen, or it's like estrogen. It's a hormone that they discovered hardened plastics.
Whoa.
Jesus.
So yeah, let's put it in everything.
Yeah, and so now you walk around, drinking out of your water bottle, and if BPA leaks into the water that you're drinking, you're taking low amounts of a compound similar to estrogen. And of course, you drink out of plastic bottles all the time.
Yeah.
That's not great.
Mm-mm.
I don't like that.
Nobody does, and that's why there's like a huge, essentially like a campaign. Loads of people that make, plastic lined things have to put on their product BPA free.
Yeah. The CDC found BPA in the urine of 95% of adults sampled from 1988 to 1994, and 93% of children and adults tested in 2003 to 2004. All of us.
Imagine what that's doing to our mood and our general feeling towards things, and just
Level of hormones in our body.
yeah. I think like clearly plastic is harmful for the environment, harmful for us on individual levels, and then has a whole species, the planet environmentally and us physically. But I think we should probably talk a little bit more about what exactly it is.
Yeah.
That's
What makes plastic?
because prior to this, I knew maybe not the specifics of a lot of these things, but at least the fact that it is one of the most damaging things that we had ever created.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly knew what it even was or how it's made. How it's made is a pretty fascinating process.
Let's hear about it.
The chemistry behind it. At least it's made out of hydrocarbons, which we get out of oil.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the oil part. And how you get those out of oil is by boiling it. And different hydrocarbons have different boiling points in the oil. And so that's how you derive things like diesel out of crude oil.
Okay.
When oil's refined in the refining towers, it's like a tall tower that has different levels of heat, and then things get siphoned off from that. So like different grades of gasoline or like diesel, like because it's boiling at a different temperature and has a kind of a different, I think, atomic mass or atomic weight, it's going to like settle at different levels.
So it's made out of a series of monomers. And monomers are molecules that bond chemically to other molecules to form a thing called a polymer, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of polymers that you're familiar with that aren't plastic. when you make polymers out of sugar, you get starches. When you make polymers of amino acids, that's how you get proteins. So they're like very common chemical element. But when you make them with these hydrocarbons from oil, I'm getting a variety of different plastics that can do like an almost endless amount of functions, from either being stringy like nylon, which is its whole function. It's like silk. It's a tiny little thing. You make like fishing nets out of it or stockings, to being heat resistant. And once it's set, it's there or it breaks. And you can have just the opposite thing happen, where you have plastics that are made to be melted back down and then reformed. As far as it seems to me, you just keep mixing different types of hydrocarbon chains together, and you get a variety of different uses out of them. And you can just endlessly experiment with them to get different functions. So we're probably hardly on the deep end of what we can actually make. We've just have these manufacturing uses that we need, and we've already found.
That kind of leads into this two types of plastic, like thermoplastics and thermosetting polymers. What you touched on, being heated again and again and again, would be thermoplastics. And I think that ties into like the recyclable, like, if you have to separate things that are recycled, like plastic that's recyclable and stuff that's not.
Cans, glass.
But like, even within plastics, some plastics non-recyclable. Essentially what happens is, once you form these polymers and they take that shape, you can't melt them back down and have them reformed. Like, these are thermosetting polymers.
The thermoset don't melt back.
Yeah.
So thermal or thermoset. Set, I mean, they're set in place is how I remember
and
it.
If you melt it back down again, you destroy the polymer.
Okay.
And it's just not going to be the same thing. Whereas thermoplastics, you can recycle, essentially.
One of the most difficult things with recycling, it's not enough to just put all of your plastic into an open box and send it off to a plant. Things like water bottles have two different kinds of plastics on them. They have the plastic that the bottle is made out of, and then the lid.
Oh, that's
and
why you
one
have
of
to take the lid off.
Yeah, it's not recyclable. So if you don't, it just gets put into the plant, and then they have to do that.
Yeah. A couple examples here, like thermoplastic CD cases, disposable razors, that kind of plastic would be, you can melt that back down. Really common stuff. But yeah, that was something that the water bottle and the cap thing.
Yeah.
I never knew why.
Yeah, I know. I just knew I had to do it.
And I didn't even know if I had to do it. I didn't know if I had to do it or if someone told me I had to do it. You know what I mean? Like because there was no explanation.
Urban legend.
Yeah. Polypropylene. It has a high tensile strength, making it ideal for use in caps and lids that have to hold tightly to threaded openings. It also has a high melting point, so it can be hot fill with products designed to cool in bottles, like ketchup and syrups made out of the same thing as like the lids are. But then when you have polyethylene terephthalate, is a clear, tough polymer with exceptional gas and moisture barrier properties. So you use that for anything with carbonation, like soft drinks. So you mix the two, and they can't go into the same place when you recycle them. But one of them is made to seal it. The other one's made to hold the carbonation. So I feel like that you have this idea of a recycling plant as a place where things just get put into a machine very similar, like the bottle machine at a Whole Foods or a Safeway. And that's recycling. And you get put into this thing, gets crushed, and then gets turned into a bottle again somewhere or whatever. It's not like that at all. It's just the step in which it gets separated and then sent to a place where hardly any of it is going to actually be recycled.
I feel really guilty. Because I feel like I have thrown bottles with the cap into recycling bins thinking, well, at least it's going to go to a recycling plant.
It'll be fine.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's better than just throwing it in the trash, but
not really.
I'm keeping the cost of recycling too high. Guys.
See, it's
guilty.
It's going into the ocean. Or it's going into a landfill.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no.
Or it's going to get reused.
Or it's going to Sweden.
Yeah.
I hope
but a little bit of it will
Sweden.
get reused. So it's going to go into the ocean, and it's going to get sucked into this gyre, which is the rotational current of the ocean, which is going to bring it into the very middle where there's hardly anything to do out there other than just like plankton and small fish, for the most part, live out through most of that until you get to like the island chain, right? Where there's going to be coral and a whole lot more animal life. But like for the most part, there's like no commercial fishing out there because there's like nothing to get until you get to the center of this thing where we've just been sending all of our garbage. And what happens when plastic gets into the ocean, when they talk about, you hear about the garbage patch being the size of Texas. You imagine it's like this big island of plastic, computer monitors and tubs of plastic and plastic bags and whole plastic objects. It's not like that at all. You couldn't see any of it. What it is it gets destroyed into the smallest particles that it can, which are tiny, but still plastic because they can't get any more broken down.
Just the function of the ocean itself, the waves crashing, just it's grinding on the ocean floor. It's bashing.
Yeah.
It's like breaking it apart, physically breaking it apart, but it's not eroding it.
It looks like the ocean still. There's nothing. It doesn't look like there's anything there. But when you filter it out, it's so much plastic per water. And what's happening is fish eat it, birds eat it, right? And not only does that kill them, which is bad because they get all this plastic in their gut, but the real problem for us, in the much more short term, is that it converts the hydrocarbons of oil back to their form and seeps into their bodies. So now they have toxins in them, which these small fish and birds are
being consumed by larger animals, larger fish that we will end up
eventually
ingesting.
eat.
Yeah.
So now,
Not me.
well, you're pretty safe.
You're pretty safe.
Except a lot of that stuff is still seeping into groundwater and going into plants.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's all bad.
yeah,
And then,
plants aren't good either. It's so damaging on such an abstract scale
Yeah.
that is directly related to us, and yet it takes so many steps together you don't even think about it.
no.
There's a thing called a plastosphere, which I thought was a pretty interesting concept. It's not a hard thing to wrap your head around. So a plastosphere is just a term used to refer to ecosystems that have evolved to live in human-made plastic environments. These chunks of plastic will go into the ocean and attract their own little ecosystem. Bacteria and germs will then thrive on these little pieces of plastic. And this was discovered in 2013, which seems like a pretty general idea that we should have known about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
More than that.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, we've only just discovered this. So like it kind of relates back to before doing any of this research. I knew that there was a lot of damaging effects going on, but like exactly what they were and how bad it is not only shocking, but it's also brand new information, because it's so easy to say like, look, we just threw all this waste out. Of course it's damaging.
Yeah.
But it's taken us so long to convince the rest of us that it's a problem, that it's like we have to have
guys.
figured it out. These like microbial reefs is what they call these little plastosphere ecosystems. And they have these bacteria that have like primary producers, grazers, predators, and decomposers, just like any other reef ecosystem, all made with a variety of different bacteria. An incredibly high biodiversity, over 1,000 kinds of microbes on a piece of plastic about 5 millimeters across, and some not normally found in the ocean, but able to survive by clinging onto the plastic and getting into the ocean, right? So the fact that plastic persists for so long is able to harbor all this life that shouldn't be there in the first place. This is possibly one of the biggest sources of invasive species on the planet, because we're just sending microbes
we're
everywhere.
Injecting it into the ocean, into the food chain.
Yeah.
I remember listening to some program where they're talking about how like a lot of face washes now, they have these like scrubbing beads, and some of them are made of plastic. So it's like it's already these tiny like.
And you just wash them into the sewer.
And they go
you don't think about that.
It's like direct. Like there's no like, oh, that plastic bag floated through the air from the city to the ocean. It's like, no, I just took a shower and like put plastic into the ocean.
Oh, weird.
Like directly.
Most plastics, when they get produced, they don't get made into the forms that we see them later. So like you won't see it in the shapes of the toys or the bottles or whatever it is that we as the consumer get. When plastic is made, it gets put into these tiny little beads called nurdles, right? Nurdles. Yeah, nurdles are amazing. They're these tiny little balls of plastic. And so somebody who wants to make a plastic something, will buy nurdles of a certain type of plastic and turn them into the product that they want. And so we're shipping nurdles all around.
Nurdles everywhere.
And nurdles are just apparently just falling off the boats while they're being like, like there's so much nurdle just falling into the ocean, and that's before it even gets made into the product to be discarded there in the first place. So it's like just whatever, we're just losing nurdles.
It's already in like individual tiny pieces.
Now it's been estimated that around 10% of beach litter globally is nurdle. It's not even, it hasn't even made it to be a product yet. It's just the nurdle.
Yeah.
That's how much we lose in the shipping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, about 10% of beach litter.
Wow.
Yeah. And that just compounds year after year. We're going to make another 115 billion pounds of nurdle this year.
Oh,
and how much of that are we going to lose just into the ocean?
115?
115 billion pounds.
So 11.5 billion pounds of that's going to end up on the beach.
And you may remember this. We had this talk in another podcast that we do months ago.
We have done.
Yeah. We have done. We'll do it again. There's the single cup coffees, right?
Oh yeah, those are ridiculous.
The Kruger, what are they?
Keurig. That guy hates it. The guy that made it, right? He regrets making it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because billions of those get made, used, and discarded every year.
Yeah.
And that's just a tiny little plastic cup. For the convenience of you having one cup of coffee, right? That's faster to make than a pot of coffee. You are wasting plastic, not to mention the manufacturing cost of it in the first place and the shipping it to you there, all the other plastic that's being used. But disregard all of that. Billions of those are being made.
Yeah.
And then they don't go anywhere.
Mm-mm.
They go into the water. Now, if they don't get to the water, they just go into a landfill.
And then they never...
Yeah. They slowly release methane as they break apart, which is bad.
Yeah.
But then they don't ever fully decompose.
And the coffee's terrible.
Yeah, well,
I mean...
that.
Like
It's
you could do better for the environment and better for yourself.
Mm-hmm. You don't think about the impact of that kind of thing, though. It's a single serving coffee.
It's just one.
Yeah.
No, it's a billion.
It's sometimes 2 a day, and you're one person, probably in a household doing 2 a day per however many people are in there. It's terrible.
Just for a little bit of history and background here, all of this, the absolute 99.999% of this, really started in only in 1907. So the damage or the, not even damage, but like the effect of this is only 108 years old.
Yeah.
1907, Bakelite was the first fully synthetic plastic.
Wow.
Where it wasn't like a natural compound, like a cellulose or glucose or some other.
It's phenyl and formaldehyde.
Yeah. Formaldehyde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The appeal is definitely there. If you have this product that's not going to erode or fall apart for your lifetime, definitely. If you had like a container that you could use over and over and over again that wasn't leaching chemicals into your body, it's like the perfect situation.
Its problem is its perfection.
It's
too good.
And it's too easy to make.
It's cheap.
It's cheap.
And it's replaceable.
Yeah.
Because of that. So we don't think anything to discard them.
Yeah. But if it costs like $1,000 for like a Tupperware, I mean, plastic's not going anywhere, you know? Like you're going to hang on to it forever. I remember one of those guys from like one of the survival shows was talking about it. Like, plastic's amazing. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. You can just use it again and again and again. Like you never have to get rid of it. But then people get rid of it.
Yeah. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
The series of events to make plastic, it's kind of fun. Do you watch any of the manufacturing processes of some of it?
Not as many videos as I thought there were going to be.
Mm-mm. But some of them are cool. Like
I saw where it's like an auger system. So like the material's being forced through a smaller kind of tube through an auger, and then like the friction heat melts it down to a certain temperature, and then like it has like an extruding tube where it gets cooled. That was pretty good. I saw a lot of videos were just, and now we're in a factory where they're making plastic. But what did you have?
So there's 3 main processes used in the production of plastic. So you first have to have raw materials to get the monomers. We were talking about that earlier, a little more of the chemistry part of it. So you got to break the oil down, get your hydrocarbons to make monomers. Ethylene and propylene come from crude oil. That's where you get most of them. Then you take those monomers and you got to turn them into polymers, which all I could find is, chemistry is not my strong suit. So it's much simpler than it probably sounds. But what you do is you take monomers and you carry out polymerization reactions in long polymerization plants. And that's how you get polymer resins. The visual way of explaining this is you have individual molecules, these monomers. And if you imagine them as people holding their hands across their chest, and you stand them all together, and then you have them reach out and connect themselves like this.
Yeah, it's a chain.
Mm-hmm. So you can do that in a couple ways. A condensation reaction is one where chemicals come together and they lose something like water and then bind to make another chemical. But whole other topic, chemistry. Like I said, not really my best.
So the chain of monomers, the polymer, the image that I came across was like, so you have a chain of polymers, I guess, but there's like from the chain, there's different atoms of different chemicals hanging from it.
It kind of looks like a Scrabble board.
Yeah.
You know, the way that they...
Yeah. It kind of gets zigzaggy. That's what gives the different plastics their different properties. So like you make like the base chain of polymers and then you're adding hanging little bits from that chain and then it changes the whole structure of the thing.
Huh.
I looked for images of like plastic polymer chains and stuff. Really, it was just it was too complicated for me immediately.
Yeah, it's
just chemistry.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like I said, I bet it's very, very simple chemistry, but it's just not what I'm good at explaining. So like when it comes down to polymers, the chemical properties of them depend on the type of monomer or monomers that you mix together. And then, of course, the arrangement of them in a polymer. And, of course, wherever they are determines the makeup of it. So once you have these polymers, you can add different plasticizers, dyes, and flame retardant chemicals to them. And then you get these pellets or beads or nurdles. Then once you have all those processed, they are then heated, molded, and allowed to cool. And the process once you do that is a little bit different depending on what type of product you want. So there's a process called extrusion, which is where the pellets are heated, mechanically mixed in a long chamber, forced through a small opening and cooled with air or water, which I think is what you saw. Yeah. And that's how you make plastic films. So that's how you're going to get, like a plastic bag, CD, wrap covers, those kinds of things. Then there's injection molding, which is where the resin pellets are heated, mechanically mixed in a chamber, and then forced under high pressure into a cooled mold. And that's used for butter and like yogurt containers, something that needs to be a certain shape. Then there's blow molding, which is used in conjunction with either of the other two. And that's where they are heated and compressed into a liquid tube like toothpaste. The resin goes into a chilled mold and compressed air gets blown into the resin tube. That expands the resin against the walls of the mold. It's used to make like plastic bottles. Then there's rotational molding, which also sounds like a little bit of what you saw. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's rotated in 3 dimensions, and that distributes the plastic along the walls of the mold. And that's how you get large, hollow plastic items like septic tanks and stuff. And it's crazy when you watch them make some of this stuff. It happens like instantaneously. So you have what looks like a long film of plastic. I was watching a video of how they make like bathtubs.
It's a weird shape because it's hollow, but it's hollow.
Yeah,
there's a hollow in. Yeah,
and so what they do is they just like take this film and then like air gets blown onto it and it gets sucked into like this little vacuum that's the shape of the bathtub. Yeah. And almost instantaneously, this thing just goes, and it's the shape of it. It's already done. It's just a bathtub. It just shows up in front of them, and they're just like, it's just an assembly line. Then they, cool it, and it goes out, and it's crazy.
I got a little bit into Goodyear and Bakeland, Leo Bakeland. There were no P.T. Barnums.
Yeah. There's no weird love triangles or anything.
Yeah.
Are there any like major landfills in the country?
New York City has.
It's just a dump.
It's called New Jersey. I think New York is beyond plastic. Just waste disposal itself is like it's an issue.
Large.
I think for a while they were exporting waste from New York to like the Midwest,
like poop.
Yeah. But all garbage was like being exported out.
Really?
I think the poop thing was for like farming. Something I remember hearing that, but I think that
fertilizer.
Even beyond that, it was.
What do you make a landfill? in this country? What do you like? All right, this is
Old
the spot where
mines.
we're going to dump a bunch of garbage.
West Virginia. I mean, they've been strip mining the surface of the state for 40, 50, 60 years. It's kind of ready to be filled in.
Well, those get dangerous too, just because of the amount of methane that they produce.
Yeah.
So you buy a soda, you drink it in 10, 15 minutes. That bottle exists.
Millions of years.
Whoa.
Unless it's recycled.
Yeah, and even then, it
Millions
has
of years.
Yeah,
The thing is, with both thermosetting and the thermoplastics, once it's created, it's in the loop in one way or another.
Yeah.
So even if it's recycled, like, okay, well, it needs to be recycled again and again and again. It's not like you recycle it and then we're back to square one. It's like that is inherently getting back out into the system.
Yeah.
a lot of times the best that you can hope for is you recycle plastic, and somebody uses that plastic to make another plastic thing.
Definitely. And then someone else recycles that
thing, and that cycle will not last very long.
And I think too that at least for some types of plastic, only like 10% of it can be a recycled plastic, or else the structural integrity of that final material isn't there. So like it would be unusable.
Yeah.
So you're it's like an uphill thing, I mean, certainly recycle.
You get a lot of hope from corn-based plastics.
Yeah, so there's erodes.
It needs to have very, very specific conditions in order for it to photodegrade.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest argument against corn plastics is that, sure, they do eventually degrade better than regular plastics, but not in the form in which we waste them.
So it needs like direct sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
open air. That's the thing too. It's like,
So when they go to a landfill, that's not what's happening.
Right.
They
it's
just stay
being
there
crushed,
anyway.
being covered by other trash. It's not
Mhm.
eroding, and some fossilized like food containers 10 million years from now.
I suppose the hope is the magic that discovered and made it. Eventually, someone will discover a way to take care of the problem.
Right.
But
I have perpetual hope about
I guess if
Yeah.
it's
think-
only been
108 years
Mhm.
since the first fully synthetic plastic.
man, like technology compounds on itself. People
Yeah.
are,
clearly it's going to be an issue
Mhm.
forever unless we figure it out.
The biggest step is convincing people that it's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's-
we've been hearing about it for such a long time. I mean, I remember,
We're also
Even-
like part of a highly educated,
sure,
informed part of society.
even
like,
as a kid, you're told like, cut those,
The 6-pack
yeah,
rings.
you don't want the poor animals to choke on them.
mhm.
I don't. Oh man, that's a
Certainly
fucking
don't.
nightmare.
That was a terrible part of this research, was looking at all the.
Image. Yeah, don't do an image search of plastic
Don't.
Mhm.
wildlife.
Animals eating it, dissecting,
Turtles with like weird shells. And
Yeah.
it's not good.
No.
When I did the image search of like plastic structure, one of the images that came up was a turtle with a plastic bag coming out of his mouth.
Oh
Ugh.
man.
It's like, stop.
Hey,
Don't eat it.
Stop it.
Mhm. I saw one with like what was it, like essentially a zip tie
Yeah.
around its body, and it had grown,
It grown
with
that
it
way.
when it was
Yeah,
a baby,
The shell.
and
is-
so it looked like two balls on the side of
Oh,
this.
weird.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It just grew through it, but it never broke.
around it.
Yeah, it just.
That's terrible.
I wish there was like a more positive way to end this, because I want recycle as much as possible. Like do
Yeah.
your part, but that's
much as you
really
can.
not a positive thing
We just got to make less of
either. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. But then, I mean, we live in the world that we do because of it.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Like we can't go back to glass and clay.
I think on the small scale we can.
No,
I think people can make individual choices.
really think about how important that Pepsi is.
Yeah.
In
It's
the
not-
bottle
it's just
or
not-
in a fountain.
There's a
where
whole
we
lot of
can get
reasons
it,
that Pepsi's not important.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because Coca-Cola exists. The fundamentals are brought to you by Coca-Cola. I think that we as individuals can make choices that are better for ourselves. I mean, even if you don't care about the overarching environmental impact, there are chemicals in plastic that are leaching into your body.
Not cool. What does BPA stand for?
Bisphenol A.
Hey.
Biphenol?
Bisphenol.
Bisphenol?
It's bad.
It's like reading Latin. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Stuff's bad.
Yeah, originally a birth control.
Yeah, that's all you need right there.
Mm-hmm.
It'll end life before it begins.
Bisphenol A.
Bisphenol A.
And just like I said, bisphenol.
Thank you, computer.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think I feel like this was a classic fundamentals big topic,
Yeah.
but it also wasn't that, unless you really like it quickly becomes a chemistry episode.
Yeah, it's a chemistry lesson. Yeah.
I didn't have any real draw to the people.
Yeah.
Sadder and sadder news about how bad it really is.
Yeah,
You know,
So it's all Goodyear's fault.
he's up there.
It's,
Leo
uh,
Bakeland is
yeah,
up there.
it was too good of a thing. We manufactured
It's too
too much
easy.
of it. Yeah, it's cheap to make, and the environmental costs, like the life cost of the product, is not factored in whatsoever to the manufacturers. So
Yeah.
there's no reason for them to stop making it, make it any more
Yeah.
expensive, find any way to take care of it, because all they have to do is make it, and we buy all that they
Yeah.
make. You know,
Without even thinking about it for
Yeah.
the most part.
And I think we're also at a point now where there are alternative packaging materials, but they're priced out.
It's in our cars. It's in our computers and phones and everything.
I think for me, buying something like the phone that I use or a television set, I feel less. Those are bigger ticket items, but you're also going to keep them
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
I think it's the packaging is the
that is the issue.
Like
just
how much styrofoam have you gone through?
Just how much
Yeah.
plastic is in your life
All
all
the
the time.
But what I'm saying is that I think it's the stuff that's not in your life all the time, but you're still buying
Yeah, oh yeah.
and then throwing
It's
away.
just going right through your life.
Right through your life. Like my phone's just in my pocket.
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll end up in a landfill eventually.
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, just today, I'm sure that even the food that I prepared for myself at home, plastic was involved in
Yeah.
getting it to my house.
Mm-hmm.
Had to have been, at least in the,
Had to have been.
Production or farming of that food.
I mean, definitely, and that's every single day. And that's
Think about like how much we use plastic to sterilize things,
mhm.
and how many times you've had to just rip open a plastic whatever to get to a thing that you were just going to use. So like to-go forks and knives that you
Yeah.
get from restaurants,
Mhm.
wrapped in a plastic film, and they're plastic.
Yeah.
It's all trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just throwing all that away, right? It's not going anywhere. It's going straight into the ocean where it's going to get broken apart and then is going to be a part of the to-go sushi that you're eating
Yeah,
with
I think
a fork and knife.
buy a farm, learn some carpentry and
Yeah.
animal husbandry skills, grow your own food.
I'm positive for a future when there will be a solution to this problem. That
Yeah, I think there was some stuff about like bacteria that eats plastic. I think
Mhm.
that's
Mm.
that's something that is possible. It's not exactly
you're like a kid figure that out. Like
I think so.
just somebody at like a high school level or something. Like,
yeah.
but it's really, really hard to reproduce his findings. So under a very specific condition, he's found bacteria that can eat certain types of
Yeah.
plastics and digest them. But it isn't like you can just feed these bacteria plastics. It has to be a very specific.
There's a certain type of bacteria to a certain type of plastic. It's like
It's a breakthrough, but it solves not even a bit of our problem.
yeah, it's a good start. If you had like a
It's a
bacteria
step in the right
strain
direction.
that
Yeah.
only existed on consuming plastic and
Yeah.
turning it into an organic.
We can make that.
Mhm.
Come on.
If that's possible, put that shit out in the water. I don't know.
Yum, 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 yum.
And then that turns out that it eats water or something, and
It
then
eats everything, and oh boy.
That's the danger. Yeah.
yeah, you don't
People
know.
don't like GMOs. They're not going to like us messing around with bacteria.
Yeah,
Scary note when it comes to like fishing.
Mhm.
It's like it's bad enough that the fish are getting all the plastic environmentally damaging to, and they're getting, cross contaminated.
Yeah.
When we fish, we use these big fishing nets to catch fish, and it used to be made out of degradable products.
Yeah.
But now we just use nylon because it's a million times cheaper and it's a lot stronger.
Sure.
But you lose them or you just get rid of them because they get old after a while and whatever. And there's an estimated 640,000 tons of nylon fishing net in the ocean. Just the fishing net. We just got rid of it. Yeah. And so these things float around for a while and get stuck in reefs. And then, because, they get hooked in there and then they just float and they just become fishing
Gas
nets
traps.
for nobody. Fish just get trapped in them and die, and that's like one very specific manufactured product.
Right.
This is truly one of those subjects where you can go from here and spend the rest of your life delving into all the details of it. Chemistry is one thing, but
all the implications in the real world impacts of...
Yeah, you become fanatical about a subject like this. It's truly, truly desperate at this point. But I suppose that's really like what the point of our podcast in the first place is, to not do that, but to get you there.
Yeah.
To start.
Yeah.
So I don't feel bad for not fully understanding the chemistry. Hopefully I get somebody interested in, it interested me. Now I want to know more about chemistry in general, not just with plastic.
I have no idea what the answer is to, plastic just being in the environment.
Oh God.
I think that's kind of the thing. It's beyond any one person. So every person has to make a choice.
And just like as consumers, we have to consume less. We have to make a more conscious effort to recycle and use less.
Yeah.
But how? Because
I think going back to glass and that kind of container, we live in a city where that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not everyone lives in a city that's possible or an environment that's possible. But I think that there's no reason why I need plastic containers in this city.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the level that I'm using them.
Yeah.
If I'm eating 100% of my meals at home.
Like poverty is a big cycle of that too, though, you think? Because
it's cheap.
Yeah, it's unbelievably
All
cheap,
the cheap
and how many
things that you ingest are in plastic containers.
I think like in developing countries like India, I think is something like plastic is in 45% of all packaging or something. It's like all packaging is made of plastic.
billion people.
A billion people.
Whoa.
One
Which
of
produce.
the more depressing things I came across, like dead animals are terrible. Our ultimate fate because of this is terrible, but in sort of a meta level, the scariest and most depressing thing I came across was, cities in Africa where there is no solution or recycling to plastic. There's so much plastic there.
Yeah.
They don't have a place where they discard it. They just let plastic bags go. And a solution to that there is taking plastic and making art out of it, turning it into purses or bags, turning it into some kind of art. And there's a big movement to do that. And I think that's fantastic, right? But when you stop and realize how it's just terrifying, really. It's just depressing because it's not a solution. It's a temporary step that ultimately delays the inevitable. Yeah, and it's terrifying because they're doing the best that they can, and they've come up with an ingenious solution, to this problem, but it doesn't get them any farther.
Yeah.
It only is recycling on a different level, and then it's still around.
Yeah.
It's just taken a different form
Materials.
that doesn't quite have any particular use different than what it already was.
Yeah.
It's just depressing.
Everybody needs to be more aware.
I was hoping this topic would be more fun.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought of just the sheer volume that it's a part of our lives and our everyday things. The things that we use. But the bigger issue is it doesn't go anywhere.
I think the incredible thing about it is it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You're listening to us right now because of plastic, probably through plastic.
Probably.
I mean, 100% guaranteed through plastic. Really, not probably.
100%.
Right? There's no way. That's
Plastic is getting us to you.
right now.
Yeah.
And it's also
Absolutely.
killing you.
Yep.
And everyone you love.
I think about
this has been the fun.
like the vinyl records,
Yeah.
plastic.
I have a bunch of those.
Now, of course, that
PVC
same
murderer.
same vinyl is used for the plumbing of your house,
Mm-hmm.
but it also is the type of film that's used to cover meat and produce products because it breathes just enough to keep color.
Yeah.
In meat in particular. So that's one type of plastic, and a very commonly known one, used for 3 very common purposes and an abundance of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course it's a wonderful thing, but then think about how much of that is also just discarded.
Just waste.
And how much of it there has to be, like records for one, a lot of pressings.
Yeah.
The same thing. And then how many pipes get made.
How everybody got music.
And then, of course, film on packaging gets discarded more than anything. It has no purpose other than to get the product to you.
When was the last time you guys littered?
When was the last time you're like walking down the street and you're like,
just thrown something down? No.
Like had something in your hand and said, fuck it.
At this point, you got to be a real jerk.
I see it all the time.
You know what? Just the other day, I was walking down the street. Somebody drove by and just threw a bottle at a tree. I heard it smash. I was like, wait, why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? What possible reason?
Man. Teenagers.
Grown men.
It's unreal.
I think it's Louis C.K. talks about how cities are just one giant landfill anyway. Like it's not the environment.
It's not an environment. Yeah.
I feel pretty similar to that. You know, like I feel bad here. Like, could you imagine just throwing a bag of Doritos into a stream out in the middle of nature? You know, like
I see that all the time.
That breaks every feeling of home and just like sanctity of the environment.
It has to be a conscious decision.
But something blows out of the trash can on the waiting for the bus, and it goes too far for you to go get it. Well, fuck it. It's a block away and the bus is coming. What do I really care about here?
Yeah.
It was somebody else. It wasn't my fault. So then I don't really feel that bad.
Right.
Somebody should have stuffed it in there a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I've been backpacking and been out pretty far, like 7-8 miles. I mean, far enough that you hiked out there and seen like doggy pickup bags full of poop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why the fuck is it in a plastic bag?
What did you pick it up for?
Yeah. You're in the woods.
You know how many other animals are shitting around that?
Everywhere. It's fine.
I mean, I don't necessarily want to walk through poop, but I'm walking past a plastic bag on the trail. It's like
you're just holding it in place for a lot longer.
For a million years.
It's going to be there a long time.
At that point, it's like it's an art piece.
That dog food is a million years old.
Oh gosh.
Well, I hope you start recycling, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't been recycling, start recycling. But then,
take the caps off.
Take the caps off
of everything.
It's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because it's not the same kind of plastic.
You know what?
Who not?
You know what I encourage you to do if you haven't done it before? Go to the dump.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't had to go to the dump, which is a tiny landfill, it's like where the stuff goes before it goes to the landfill.
Pre-landfill.
It's an incredible little slice of life. It's just bizarre. Like the amount of stuff that's just wasted, sitting there in big piles. And then if you look up, at least at the Portland dump, above these mountains of trash is a conveyor belt. With like 45 people.
Sorting.
All wearing their masks, just sorting through stuff. That's a job. Yeah. That's crazy.
You only ever see garbage.
It's literally an uphill fight.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
You only ever really see garbage in small containers, like your little garbage can that you put into a little bit bigger garbage can, and then the garbage man takes it away. But
and he's just essentially driving a slightly bigger garbage can
to a much bigger garbage can to the biggest garbage can there is, the earth.
Everyone you know is doing that, and you have more trash than some people and less trash than other people.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, you're probably somewhere in the middle of trash production.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. I have no idea what my waste impact actually is.
Right.
I feel like I don't waste that much. I feel like I hardly ever throw things in the garbage. I say that without any information to back that up, aside from my recollection of how many times I put a thing in the garbage today. And that's probably really poorly recollected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, there's no doubt. I probably couldn't tell you accurately how much stuff I've thrown away today.
Yeah.
Or things, that are pretty close to being thrown away that I just haven't thrown away yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
A lot of garbage around.
Mm-hmm.
What a strange precursor to the whole episode.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
My headphones broke right before we
Yeah.
started doing this.
A
And,
piece of
I'm
plastic
holding a
of
piece
your
of
headphones.
plastic,
Mm-hmm.
which is now trash until I
Yeah.
tape it to my headphones.
We'll do our best. Well, this has been the fundamentals of plastic,
Mm-hmm.
for better or worse.
Hope you learned a thing or two.
I hope you feel not bad, but I hope you feel.
I hope you feel something.
Mm-hmm. I'm Martin Wallace.
I'm Darren McCarthy,
And I'm Dan Fury.
and this has been The Fundamentals.
I love you.